English is not my first language, and when I first started working with native speakers, it was an absolute disaster. Don't get me wrong, my grammar was good, my vocabulary was okay, and my pronunciation was nice, but I was terrible at phrasal verbs. One day, I had a business call with one of my colleagues, and I was telling him that I sent him some important information to his email, and he responded with, "I need to check out this email and get back to you." Check out, like leave the hotel? Then he explained to me that the phrasal verb to check out means to look at something. I was so surprised because at school, when I was little, my teacher told me that to check out means to leave your hotel, which is correct, but it has other meanings as well. And that's when I realized that you can know 10,000 English words, you can have perfect grammar and still sound like a confused tourist because you don't know phrasal verbs. These little two-word combinations are everywhere in English, and native speakers use them all the time without even thinking about it. But here's the thing, most English learners completely ignore them and then wonder why they can't understand movies or casual conversations. Today, I'm sharing 25 phrasal verbs that show up in English every single day. For example, the phrasal verb wrap up doesn't mean to cover something with paper, like when you're wrapping a gift. It means to finish something, like an online meeting or a phone call. But how is anyone supposed to know that? And it gets even more difficult with verbs like look. Look means to see something, but look up means to search for information on the internet. And look down means to feel superior to someone. And look out means to be careful. It's the same word, but totally different meanings. These things are absolutely essential for real English communication. So I started collecting the ones that come up most often, and today I'm sharing 25 phrasal verbs that are absolutely necessary for you. The first one is to weigh up. To weigh up means to carefully compare two choices before you pick one. Like when you hold two things in your hands to see which one is heavier, but you do it with your brain. If you're between two choices and you need to only pick one, you need to use this phrase. You need to weigh up the pros and cons before you choose where to live. Before you buy a new apartment or a house, you check out the neighborhood to see the good and bad things that may possibly happen before you start living there. When you have two job offers, you weigh up each one before deciding where you're going to work. So to weigh up means to compare two choices before you pick one. And number two, to rule out. To rule out means to remove one option because it's impossible or unacceptable, like crossing something off your list with a giant red marker. For example, we ruled out the apartment near the airport because the airplane noise would keep us awake all night. And number three, zero in on. To zero in on means to focus completely on one important thing. When you ignore everything else and focus 100% on just one thing. For example, in yesterday's budget talk, we zeroed in on travel costs. They were 40% higher than last year. Zero in here means that we ignored everything else just to focus on travel costs. This phrasal verb is used when you not only want to focus on something, but also want to solve a problem or an issue. And number four, to bank on. You use it when you want to say that you expect or depend on something. For example, I wouldn't bank on Tom's help this week. He forgets everything. This means it wouldn't be good to depend or rely on Tom's help. You can also use it in a question. When you would like to ask someone if you can depend on them, you could say, "Can I bank on you finishing this project by Friday?" And number five, to phase out. To phase out means to gradually stop using something while replacing it with something else. Something new, like slowly turning down one song while turning up another. When you phase out something, you don't stop it suddenly. You remove it step by step and replace it with something better. Apple is phasing out old charging ports. Soon, all iPhones will use Type-C charging. Canada will phase out gas cars by 2035. Electric cars will take over. And number six, account for. This phrasal verb means to form the total of something. For example, if you have a coffee shop next to a high school, you could say, "Students account for the majority of my customers." This means that students form the total number of your customers. Number seven, to get your point across. To get your point across means to make people understand your idea very clearly, like passing a basketball straight into their hands. The teacher was explaining this grammar rule for 20 minutes, but he didn't get it across. This means that even though the teacher explained everything, the students didn't understand it in the end. And number 8, buy into. To buy into means to fully accept or believe in an idea or a plan or a philosophy. When you buy into something, you trust that it's true or valuable, and you support it emotionally and mentally, and you commit to it. For example, the team bought into the new remote work policy after seeing the productivity data. Her father doesn't buy into any sort of diet. He just eats whatever he wants. And number 10, freeze up. To freeze up means to suddenly become unable to move, speak, or do anything because you're too stressed or too shocked. You can use this phrasal verb when you want to say that you were surprised by something that was shocking or unexpected. When somebody asks you, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? You freeze up. Your mind goes blank. And number 11, look into. To look into means to investigate or examine a situation to find answers. For example, he decided to quit his job. I need to look into it before I suggest anything to him. When you look into something, you try to find a solution for it in the end. Not just for the sake of seeing it or looking at it, but you try to solve a problem. And number 12, to move up. This means to advance professionally. If you were a manager last year and this year you're a senior manager, it means you moved up. For example, she moved up to director in just 3 years. Also, when you're asking your boss for promotion, you can say, what skills do I need to move up in the company? There's this popular phrase as well, to move up the corporate ladder. It means to keep getting promoted to a higher and higher position. Also, it's used when you want to say that you reschedule a meeting to an earlier time. You can say, let's move up the 3 p.m. meeting to 1 p.m. so we can leave earlier. So moving up means to reschedule a meeting to an earlier time. And the next phrasal verb, to branch out. To branch out means to start doing something different from what you usually do, especially in your job. For example, after 10 years in finance, she branched out and opened a yoga studio. You can also use branch out with the preposition into. For example, she branched out into marketing last year. And number 15, to step down. To step down means to resign from a high-level position at your company. To resign means to quit or to stop working for a company. For example, the CEO stepped down after 5 years in the company. Remember that stepping down can only be from a high-level position like a president, CEO, or a senior director at a company. And number 16, cashing on something. Cashing in on something means to use a situation or an event to your own financial advantage. For example, she cashed in on the yoga boom by opening a studio before anyone else. So to cash in on something means to benefit financially from a situation or to benefit from a trend or an event. And 17, to figure out. To figure out is a very common phrasal verb, and it means to solve or understand something through thinking. When you keep thinking about something to finally come up with a solution. For example, I finally figured out why my Wi-Fi keeps stopping. Please keep in mind that figure out is usually followed by a question word such as how, why, when, or who. For example, if they know the cause of a problem, they might be able to figure out how to prevent it from happening again. And number 18, to point out. To point out means to direct attention to something important that other people might miss. If you want to highlight or mention something important, you point it out. For example, she pointed out the typo in my resume before I sent it to the HR manager. He was planning to book a rock climbing holiday until I pointed out that Dennis is afraid of heights. Remember that point out means to tell someone about some information, often because you believe they do not know it or they've forgotten it. And phrasal verb number 19 is to work out. This phrasal verb has 2 different meanings. Number 1, to solve a problem, and the second one is to exercise, like going to the gym. I work out at the gym on Mondays and Thursdays. There will be a full investigation to work out what caused the accident. And the next phrasal verb, to turn out. To turn out means to have an unexpected result. Like when you expected something to happen, only to find out that something completely different happened in the end. For example, I thought our picnic would be ruined because of the rain, but it turned out to be great. And the next one, to come across. To come across means to see or find something by chance. chance. Like when you didn't plan for it. I came across my old journals when I was cleaning my room. She came across a really nice article about learning English phrasal verbs. And number 22, to step up. To step up means to take responsibility or offer your help when someone needs it, especially in a challenge or a problem. For example, her mom got sick, so she stepped up. She cooked meals and managed her meds while her father was abroad. After the hurricane, everyone stepped up to help their neighbors. So to step up is to be brave and offer your help when it's really needed. And the next one, to fall through. If a plan falls through, it fails unexpectedly at the last moment. We found a buyer for our house, but then the sale fell through. And the next one, to run by. To run by means to share an idea for feedback or approval before you make a decision. For example, please run this email by the marketing manager before sending it out. I ran my vacation plan by Sarah, and she pointed out that it's hurricane season. If someone is asking if they can run something by you, it means that they're looking to find weak spots or suggest improvements, or they just need your honest feedback. And phrasal verb number 25 is to catch on. It means to finally understand something. I struggled with phrasal verbs until they finally caught on. I was finally able to understand it. After long hours of studying and learning, they became easier. However, most of us think that studying and learning should be boring, especially when all you're doing is creating vocabulary lists and translations. Personally, if I were to start learning English, especially phrasal verbs, all over again, I'd save this video and take just 5 phrasal verbs every day, write them down on a piece of paper, and then I would go to youglish.com to see how native speakers use these phrasal verbs in conversations and how they pronounce them. After that, I would give myself 15 minutes to write a short story where I can use all of these phrasal verbs, because our brains learn faster and better with stories. I guarantee if you do this every day, you will never forget these phrasal verbs again. If you're a professional and you want to take your business English vocabulary to the next level, I just made a video about the most important business English phrases you will ever need for online meetings, and you can watch it by clicking right here.